Welcome to my little corner, where I share stories of life's triumphs and failures. Let's brew a cup of coffee. Sit back and listen to the lessons brought by experience. Today, I want to share a story, perhaps the craziest decision of my entire life. But it also brought me the most profound peace. The ink was barely dry on our divorce papers, which ended our 10-year marriage that I thought was perfect, when I immediately signed another document. It was the deed granting our mansion, valued at $25 million, the fruit of my blood, sweat, and tears, to a charity for orphan children. At that moment, before my lawyer could even offer his congratulations, my former mother-in-law, Eleanor Vanderbilt, stormed in like a hurricane. She grabbed my arm, screaming insults, her spittle flying onto my face. "Are you insane? If you give that away, where will my family live? Do you want us to live on the streets?" The entire room fell into a deafening silence. All eyes were on me. I wasn't surprised, nor was I afraid. Slowly, I removed her hand. I met her eyes, red with rage, and answered with a single sentence, a sentence that stopped her dead in her tracks, silencing her completely. To understand why I did that, perhaps I need to tell you what happened a month ago. On a day when I still believed I was the happiest woman in the world. It was a beautiful Saturday. The golden glow of the sun enveloped the sprawling garden of our mansion in an exclusive gated community in Greenwich, Connecticut. For a week, I had personally prepared for a very important occasion, my in-laws' wedding anniversary. I wanted it to be more than just a simple gathering. I wanted it to be a memorable occasion, a heartfelt thank you to the people I had considered true parents for a decade. I spared no expense. I hired the best chefs. I decorated the entire garden with thousands of luxury floral arrangements. I even set up a small stage with a live band, playing classic American love songs, my in-laws' favorites from their younger days. Every detail, from the hand-embroidered silk tablecloths to the most expensive wines, was personally chosen by me. As evening fell, our mansion sparkled like a palace. The guests were close friends and business partners of my husband's family. Everyone admired the grandeur and sophistication of the celebration. I wore a pearl-embellished evening gown, standing next to my husband, Michael, smiling and greeting each guest. Michael looked dashing in his custom-tailored suit. He put his arm around me and whispered, "You must be tired, my love. Our family and I are so lucky you came into our lives." My heart filled with happiness. I leaned my head on his shoulder, feeling all my fatigue disappear. The stars of the night, my in-laws, couldn't hide their joy. Eleanor wore a luxurious red velvet gown with a sparkling diamond jewelry set, a gift I had given her the previous week. She walked around, proudly introducing me to everyone as her wonderful daughter-in-law. "That's my daughter-in-law. She handled all of this. She loves us, her in-laws, more than her own parents." When I heard those words, even though I knew they were just for show, I still felt a warmth in my heart. I thought that 10 years of sacrifice and care had finally been reciprocated with recognition and affection. Michael's entire family was also there. His 2 younger brothers, David and Mark, along with their wives and children, and his youngest sister, Jessica, with her fiancé. There were 12 of them in total. While they had their own homes nearby, they practically lived at our mansion, treating it as the family's communal hub. I never complained. In fact, I was happy. I always thought a big house felt lonely, without the noise of people. I happily carried my nieces and nephews, watching them run and play on the lawn, secretly hoping that one day, this house would also be filled with the laughter of my own children. Michael and I had been married for 10 years, but we hadn't been blessed with a child. This was my greatest sorrow, and it was also why I always felt inadequate to my husband's family. The party was a great success. When it came time to cut the cake, I even prepared a surprise gift. The keys to a brand new Mercedes-Benz S-Class. My gift to my father-in-law, Richard. He was stunned and so deeply touched he couldn't speak, only patted my shoulder. Eleanor hugged me. "My dear, how can we ever repay you for all of this?" At that moment, I believed I had done the right thing, that all my sacrifices were worth it. But I never imagined that behind that peak of happiness, an abyss of lies awaited me. After the party ended and the guests had left, only the family remained. Suddenly, Eleanor signaled for Michael and me to sit in the living room. She said she had something important to discuss. I thought she would thank me again. But no. After dismissing the staff, she looked at me. There was still a smile on her lips, but there was something different in her eyes. A calculating look I had never seen before. "Sarah," she began sweetly, "you truly made your father and me proud tonight. This entire family and clan owe you a debt of gratitude." "It's nothing, Mom. It's my duty," I replied humbly. She nodded slowly and continued, "I know you love this family. You love Michael. But look at the men out there. They need status in life. Michael is capable and handsome, but everywhere he goes, people know he lives in a house registered in his wife's name. Sometimes, there are unpleasant whispers that affect his career." I started to feel uneasy. Michael held my hand, his eyes full of what I thought was love. "Honey, don't overthink it. Mom is just worried about me," Eleanor continued, as if her words carried no weight. "How about this? I have an idea. It's for the good of your marriage and this family. What if you transfer the deed of this mansion to Michael's name? After all, you're married. Your wealth is for both of you. But if it's in his name, he'll have greater self-confidence for big projects. A home with a male head is prosperous, isn't it?" Every word she spoke felt like a hammer, striking my head. This mansion wasn't just property. It was the fruit of 10 years of my youth, the company I built from nothing that I sold to buy it. It was a symbol of my independence, my hard work. Now, for such a shallow reason, my mother-in-law wanted me to simply surrender it. The smile on my face froze. I looked at Michael, hoping he would say something, that he would defend me, but he remained silent, still holding my hand. His eyes were expectant, and I felt a chill run through my entire body. My mother-in-law's smile now seemed strange and terrifying. If you're curious about my answer to my mother-in-law and what terrifying plans lay hidden behind that unreasonable request, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter of this exciting story. The silence after my mother-in-law Eleanor's suggestion was so heavy that I could almost hear the faint buzzing of a stray mosquito in the living room. Her smile was still there, but the warmth I once thought it held was gone. It was like a perfect mask hiding a cold calculation. I looked at my husband, Michael, the man I had dedicated 10 years of my youth to loving and serving. His grip on my hand was still tight, but why did it feel so loose and distant now? He didn't look at me, nor at his mother. His eyes avoided mine, focused instead on a vase of orchids in the corner. His silence at that moment was crueler than any words. It was a silent agreement, a concession made without even asking for my opinion. I felt as if my chest was being squeezed. I tried to breathe deeply, desperately searching for my voice, which shock seemed to have stolen. "Mom, I think this is a very significant matter. I need time to think about it," I stammered, each word incredibly difficult to utter. Eleanor nodded gently, her smile unchanged. "Of course, dear. It's just Mom's suggestion. After all, it's for the future of you two, as a couple. Think it over carefully. There's no rush." She stood up, gently patted my shoulder, a pat full of hidden meaning. "Mom's tired. I'm going up to rest. You two should rest as well." She calmly ascended the stairs, her movements peaceful, as if we had only been discussing tomorrow's weather. Michael and I were left alone in the vast living room. The grandeur of the furniture, the sparkling light of the chandelier I once boasted about, now seemed cold and lifeless. Finally, Michael turned to me, forcing a smile. "Don't think too deeply about it. Mom just said that. She always worries about us, you know?" I withdrew my hand from his, a small gesture, but laden with immense disappointment. "Michael, do you see it that way too? Do you also think I should transfer the deed of this mansion to your name?" I asked, my voice trembling. Michael seemed confused. He scratched his head, a habit of his when he was uncomfortable. "No, not exactly. But if you think about it, Mom has a point. I'm the man, the pillar of the household. When I go out for business, if I have a substantial property in my name, it makes a different impression. And besides, it's still our home. It's not going anywhere. So why worry? Pillar of the household." I almost laughed, a bitter laugh. Michael, for 10 years, who has truly been the pillar of this family. Don't you know? My company, the money I earn, this house, I worked for all of it. When have you ever worried about money, even for a single day? It felt like I had stepped on his ego. Michael's brow furrowed, and his voice began to show irritation. Sarah, why are you saying that? I work too. I earn money and contribute to this family. Don't think that just because you earn more, you can belittle me. I'm not belittling you. I paused. I just don't understand why even you aren't on my side. Why do you want to take the one thing that proves my hard work? Our argument was going nowhere. Michael started raising his voice, calling me selfish, unable to think for my husband, and disrespectful to my mother-in-law. He said I had changed, no longer the kind and gentle woman he once knew. Every word he uttered felt like a dagger piercing my heart. I no longer responded. I realized that in his mind, my sacrifices, my giving to him and his family, were simply expected. Tired, I stood up. I'm tired. I want to rest. I turned and walked away, leaving Michael alone in the living room. I didn't sleep that night. I lay with my back to Michael, pretending to be fast asleep, but tears flowed silently down my cheeks, soaking my pillow. For the first time in 10 years, I felt utterly alone in my own marriage. I thought it was just a moment of my husband's weakness, a sudden suggestion from my mother-in-law. But I was wrong. In the days that followed, an invisible pressure began to weigh down on me from all sides. Eleanor no longer directly mentioned transferring the title. Instead, she used cunning methods. At every dinner, she would sigh and tell stories about Mrs. A's son, whose wife transferred her entire company to his name, and now they were incredibly wealthy, or about Mr. B, who was promoted to director because he had a large house in his name. Every story was a jab at me. She didn't just speak in front of me. She called her children, her relatives, to complain that her daughter-in-law had become arrogant due to her success, had grown stingy, and refused to transfer the property to her husband's name. Rumors began to spread. Critical glances and whispers were directed at me. Michael, meanwhile, grew increasingly distant. No more sweet words, no more warm hugs. He often came home late, citing business meetings or clients. But I knew those were just excuses to avoid our conversations. Occasionally, he would advise me, "My love, just agree. Just do what Mom wants so the house can be peaceful again. Why are you blowing this issue out of proportion? Are you trying to make Mom sad and make things difficult for me? Our family is harmonious and happy. Don't ruin everything over such a small thing." A small thing for him and his family. Perhaps it was a small thing for them. But for me, it was my entire career, my dignity, the last frontier of my sacrifice. I started to feel suffocated. The spacious mansion I once loved now felt like a golden cage, trapping me in pressures and calculations. I realized they didn't just want me to transfer the title of the mansion. They wanted me to completely surrender my independence. They wanted to turn me into a puppet under their control. And most terrifying of all, they seemed to have a bigger plan. A plan where the arrival of his siblings at our house was just the beginning. The real nightmare began one Saturday morning, almost 2 weeks after the anniversary party. I was in my home office, trying to focus on a quarterly financial report, when I heard noise outside the gate. Laughter, chatter, and children's shouts echoing. Moments later, our maid ran in, breathless, and knocked on the door. "Ma'am, Sir David's and Sir Mark's families have arrived. They brought so much luggage." My brow furrowed. A bad premonition enveloped me. I went downstairs, and the sight before me stopped me cold. My spacious living room looked like a small bus terminal. Suitcases, bags, and boxes were piled up. My 2 brothers-in-law's families, 4 adults and 3 children, were comfortably sprawled on the sofa, munching on fruit and watching TV. My mother-in-law, Eleanor, was holding her youngest grandchild and chatting happily. When she saw me, she said in a casual tone, as if it were the most normal thing in the world, "Ah, Sarah, there you are. Your brothers-in-law came to visit their grandparents with the children for a few days. Just prepare the 2 rooms upstairs for them." I was stunned. Just a few days? But why did they bring so much stuff? And why didn't anyone tell me a word? I looked at Michael, who was busy carrying a large suitcase, avoiding my gaze. "Mom, Why didn't they tell me they were coming? The house. I carefully chose my words. Eleanor cut me off, a hint of annoyance in her voice. What are you talking about? This is their home too. Brothers visiting their parents. Do they need a daughter-in-law's permission? My second sister-in-law, Lisa, a woman who seemed kind but had sharp eyes, smiled and spoke. Sarah, don't worry. We'll only be here for a few weeks. Our house is a bit dusty due to renovation. We don't want the children to be affected. Michael agreed. He said we should just stay here to be comfortable. I looked at Michael, who simply nodded uneasily. I was going to tell you later. From that moment on, my life was completely disrupted. My quiet mansion suddenly turned into a noisy marketplace, with children's cries, adults' shouts, and loud TV from morning until night. My privacy was completely gone. They freely entered my office, rummaged through my belongings, and used my computer for their children's cartoons. Sometimes I caught my third brother-in-law casually using my limited edition coffee machine to brew a 3-in-1 instant coffee. When I frowned, he just laughed. Wow, Sarah, your machine is great. It can make any kind of coffee. But the disruption didn't end there. The financial burden began to weigh on me. Electricity and water bills soared. The refrigerator was always empty due to their incessant eating. My staff were exhausted from morning till night, constantly complaining to me, "Ma'am, I don't think I can do this anymore." They order me around for everything, from washing their underwear to peeling fruit for the children. After eating, they just leave plates everywhere. I wasn't spared either. Every night, after coming home from work, instead of resting, I had to cook for nearly 20 people. My sisters-in-law always had an excuse, either taking care of the children, scrolling on their phones, or gossiping. No one helped me. As for my mother-in-law, she said it was my duty. You're the eldest daughter-in-law. You own this house. If you don't take care of things, who will? I tried to talk to Michael. Honey, I'm so tired. I can't live like this anymore. Can you please tell your siblings to find another place to stay? But his only response was a sigh and irresponsible advice. Let it go, dear. They're family. It's only temporary. They'll leave eventually. Just bear with it for now. Don't make things harder for me. Bear with it. I had been bearing with it for 10 years, but my patience only seemed to embolden them to abuse me further. They no longer treated me as the owner of this house. They treated me as a high-class maid, an endless ATM. I began to realize that their move wasn't a coincidence. It was part of my mother-in-law's plan. She wanted to use them to pressure me, to wear me down, until I myself would surrender and agree to transfer the deed of the mansion for peace. I felt cornered. My silence and patience were no longer effective. And then something happened. A small thing. But it was the last straw that made me realize that if I didn't act, I would lose everything. Not just the house, but also my dignity. The last straw came on a Saturday afternoon. After an exhausting week at work, all I wanted was a quiet evening to rest. But no, my second brother-in-law, David, decided to host a surprise birthday party for his wife in my living room. He invited nearly 20 friends, played incredibly loud music, and scattered food and drinks everywhere without even asking me. When I came home from work and saw the chaotic scene, I froze at the door. When David, holding a can of beer, saw me, he approached and put his arm around me. "Oh, Sarah, you're here. Have fun. It's Lisa's birthday tonight. No one's going home until they're drunk." I removed his hand, my voice cold. "Who gave you permission to party here? This is my house." David paused briefly, then smirked, a smirk full of condescension. "Your house? That's funny. This is Michael's house, my brother's. And my brother's house is like my house. You're just a daughter-in-law, an outsider. Don't get too big for your britches here, outsider." Those two words felt like a knife piercing my heart. I turned to look for Michael. He was standing in a corner, chatting happily with his friends, seemingly oblivious to our conversation. My mother-in-law, meanwhile, was sitting on the sofa, happily accepting gifts for her daughter-in-law. No one defended me. In their eyes, I was just an outsider whose duty it was to provide space and money for their enjoyment. I said nothing more. My silence this time was no longer patience, but utter loathing. I turned and walked straight up to my room, slamming the door shut. The noise of the music and laughter from downstairs still reached me, but it no longer hurt me. It only strengthened my resolve. My patience had run out. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in front of my computer and started reviewing all my bank accounts and investments. I needed to know what I had. I needed to protect it before it was too late. And something unusual caught my attention. Our joint savings account, an account we had agreed to use only for large purchases like land, investments, or emergencies, had been significantly depleted by $1 million. The money had been withdrawn a week ago, and the transaction was made by Michael. My heart seemed to stop. $1 million. Not a small amount. Where did he use it? Why didn't he even tell me? Trembling, I opened the transaction history. The money had been transferred to an account registered to Mark. Mark, Michael's youngest brother, had recently been complaining about wanting to start a tech startup, but lacking capital. I remained motionless in my chair, feeling as if all my strength had been drained. So that was it. While I was struggling to pay all the expenses of the entire family, my husband was secretly taking our hard-earned savings, my blood, sweat, and tears, to give to his brother to start a business. What did he think of me? An endless treasury? The next day, I didn't go to work. I sat in the living room, placed the bank statement on the table, and quietly waited for Michael. When he came out of the bedroom and saw me and the paper on the table, his expression immediately changed. "You found out?" he stammered. "Found out what? That you took $1 million from the family funds to lend to your brother? Or that you betrayed my trust for so many years?" I asked, my voice terrifyingly calm. Michael began to panic. He tried to explain. "Sarah, please listen to me. Mark has a good business opportunity. I just lent it to him for now. He promised to return it with interest. I was going to wait for everything to be settled before telling you. Lent it without asking me? Is that what you call lending, Michael? That was our money. Money for our future, for our children, someday. What right do you have to decide alone? I'm your wife. I'm the man of this house. Don't I have any rights?" Michael suddenly shouted, perhaps because he had run out of excuses. "And besides, he's my brother. Are you that stingy that you'd deny even our own family?" Just then, Eleanor came downstairs. She heard our argument and immediately joined in, siding with her son. "What's going on here? So early in the morning, you're making so much noise. My God, for such a paltry sum, you're blowing it out of proportion. Michael just lent it to his brother for a business. It's not like he gambled it away. As a daughter-in-law, you should know how to think for your husband's family. You're always just hoarding money. Truly a narrow-minded woman." "Mom!" I shouted. For the first time in 10 years, I dared to raise my voice in front of my mother-in-law. "Do you know how much that amount is? I worked for that, my blood, sweat, and tears. What right do you have to treat it like trash?" Both Michael and Eleanor were stunned by my reaction, but their shock quickly turned into anger. You're shouting at me now?" Eleanor pointed at me. "Disrespectful daughter-in-law. I'll teach you a lesson. Enough." I suddenly stood up, no longer any fear in my eyes, only disappointment and determination. My patience has run out. From now on, I will not remain silent for another second. I turned and walked away, leaving the two stunned. The first crack had appeared, and I knew it could never be mended. My marriage, the family I had painstakingly built, was on the brink of collapse. My story is perhaps familiar to many women who silently endure in their homes. If you also believe that sacrifice must come with respect, and that it's time for women to fight for their worth, please give this channel a like and subscribe. Every bit of support from you is invaluable inspiration for us to continue sharing stronger and more meaningful stories. Thank you very much. The intense anger and disappointment gave me strength I hadn't expected. I didn't leave. I didn't cry. Instead, I returned to my office, closed the door, and began to act. I knew that from this moment on, I couldn't trust anyone in this house. I had to protect myself. The first thing I did was call the bank, requesting a temporary freeze on our joint savings account. All transactions from now on would require both our signatures. This was an immediate step to prevent Michael from continuing to deplete our assets. After that, I began my own investigation. I knew the $1 million was just the beginning. I was sure they had other things hidden from me. I started with the most obvious clues. I remembered the times Michael came home late, supposedly due to business meetings, the secretive phone calls in the bathroom, the messages he quickly deleted. Before, I chose to trust him. I ignored those suspicious signs. But now, every small detail became a clue. I wasn't a professional investigator, but I had the intuition of a wronged woman and the meticulousness of a CEO accustomed to analyzing data. I started reviewing all of Michael's credit card bills for the past year. The expenses at expensive restaurants, shopping at designer stores, trips he claimed were solo business trips. Everything seemed normal. Until I discovered a strange pattern. Most of Michael's large transactions occurred at the same time and in nearby locations. It seemed he wasn't alone. I needed stronger evidence. The opportunity came one night when everyone was asleep. Michael, exhausted from our argument, had drunk a lot of alcohol and was sound asleep. Slowly, I took his phone. My heart pounded loudly. This was the first time I had violated my husband's privacy, but I knew I had no other choice. Fortunately, the password was still our anniversary date, a bitter irony. I bypassed text messages and common chat apps. I knew he was clever enough to erase all traces there. I went to a place most people wouldn't expect, the recently deleted photo album. And there, my world crumbled again. Hundreds of photos appeared. Michael and another woman. They were hugging on a beach. They were laughing happily at a bar. Their heads were leaning against each other in an expensive hotel room. I immediately recognized the woman, Ashley, his ex-girlfriend from college, whom he said he had long since cut all ties with. In one photo, she was wearing a diamond necklace. I instantly recognized it. It was the necklace I had bought as a birthday gift for Michael, but he had rejected it, saying men shouldn't wear anything too flashy. He didn't dislike it. He had just saved it for someone else. Every photo, every happy moment they shared, felt like 1,000 needles piercing my heart. The pain of emotional betrayal was even more intense than the loss of money. He had deceived me, not just in a moment of weakness, but in a systematic deception that had been going on for a long time, expertly covered up. Trembling, I took photos of all the evidence, sent them to my email, and deleted all traces. I returned the phone to its original spot. I went back to bed but couldn't sleep. The pain and anger mixed in my mind. But amidst the turbulent emotions, a cold and clear thought formed. I wouldn't cause a scandal. I wouldn't let him know I knew everything. I would continue to play the role of an innocent wife who was upset about money. I would let them continue their charade, their perfect play, and I would wait. I would wait for the right moment to expose everything. But I didn't have to wait long. Their overconfidence gave me the opportunity. One night, while I was pretending to sleep, I heard the door of our room slowly open. Michael slowly slipped out. I followed him quietly. He didn't go to the office or the living room. He went up to the rooftop, where the phone signal was strongest. I hid behind the stairwell door and listened. He was talking to his mother, and what I heard was beyond my worst imagination. "Mom, I think she's starting to suspect something." Michael's voice was full of worry. "She froze the joint account. She blew up about the $1 million for Mark." Eleanor's voice on the other end was sharp and calculating. "Let her suspect. So what? Does she have evidence? Just sweet-talk her a little. A few charming words and she'll be docile again. Women are swayed by what they hear." Eleanor paused for a moment, and then she said a sentence that made me bite my lip to keep from screaming. "Once she transfers the deed, once everything is ours, you can kick her out. It won't be too late. After that, you can bring Ashley to the house or do whatever you want." I froze in the dark, my hands and feet trembling, my entire body cold. This wasn't just simple financial deceit. It wasn't just infidelity. It was a carefully crafted plan to seize all my assets, and then to throw me away like useless trash. And the mastermind behind all of it was none other than my mother-in-law, the woman I once respected. My tears no longer fell. The pain had turned into ultimate hatred, a cold and sharp rage. I quietly returned to our room. My heart had completely turned to stone. The lies were exposed, the plans revealed. From this moment on, there was no innocent and weak Sarah. but a woman preparing for a war to reclaim everything she had lost, and to make those who had trampled her pay dearly. That night, when I heard the horrifying mother-son plot on the rooftop, became an unforgettable chapter in my life. It was like poison that completely killed the love and remaining trust in my heart. But at the same time, it was also a cure that fully awakened me from the role of an innocent wife I had imprisoned myself in for 10 years. The next morning, I woke up without tears, without pain, without suffering. Instead, an extraordinary peace enveloped me, a peace found in the eye of a storm. I looked at the man sleeping soundly beside me. The man who, just last night, was planning to throw me out of my own home, and I felt nothing. In my eyes now, he was an enemy I had to defeat. I knew that to face an entire family full of deceit, I couldn't do it alone. I needed a perfect plan, trustworthy allies, and undeniable evidence. I decided not to cause a scandal. I wouldn't expose them immediately. That would be a foolish move. I would continue to act. I would play the role of a wife hurt by money, slowly softening to her husband's sweet words. I would let them think I was still a pawn in their game, so they would become complacent and expose more mistakes. The first thing I did was call Mr. Harrison, the elderly lawyer who had been with me since I started my business. He wasn't just a lawyer. He was also like an uncle, a close friend whom I deeply respected. I met him at a quiet coffee shop, recounting everything from the plan to seize the mansion, Michael's infidelity, to the plan to kick me out. After listening, Mr. Harrison remained silent for a long time, his face serious, his eyes reflecting anger and pity. I wouldn't have believed it. I misjudged that man, he said in a low voice. I thought Michael was a decent man, but he's a wolf, along with his whole family. What should I do now, Uncle George? I asked, my voice slightly trembling. Stay calm, Sarah. Mr. Harrison placed his hand on my shoulder, a firm reassurance. The first and most important thing now is to protect your assets. Don't sign any document related to transferring titles or any authorization. Second, we need to gather more evidence. The photos you took, the conversation you overheard, all of that is important, but we need more. I'll hire investigators to track Michael and his mistress. Every move they make, every meeting, we need to document everything. I'll also investigate their suspicious financial transactions. What about his family? Regarding them, Mr. Harrison's eyes narrowed. Just keep acting. Show that you're tired, disheartened, but slowly softening. Let them think they're close to succeeding. When the victim shows weakness, the predators become even more complacent. I nodded. Mr. Harrison's plan aligned with my thoughts. With his support, I felt more confident. After leaving the coffee shop, I began my plan. I went home looking disheveled, with swollen eyes. When Michael saw me, he immediately ran to greet me, his voice full of concern. Where have you been all day? Do you know I was worried about you? I didn't speak. I just buried my face in his shoulder and began to cry, tears of a true actress. I cried for the betrayal, for the injustice, but he thought I was crying out of weakness because I needed his protection. It's okay, my love. He stroked my back. It's my fault. I shouldn't have hidden the money from you. Whatever punishment you want to give me, I'll accept it. Just don't be silent like this. It scares me. I looked up at him, my eyes full of tears. I'm so tired. I don't know who to believe anymore. My acting was immediately effective. Michael completely believed I was just upset about the $1 million and was completely unaware of the deeper plan. He tried to appease me, promising all sorts of things. He said he would find a way to get the money back from his brother, that he would never keep anything from me again. I just nodded silently, pretending to be a wife whose anger was slowly subsiding. Meanwhile, outside, Mr. Harrison's investigation team began to work. In just a few days, he sent me the first bits of information. Michael and Ashley met almost daily. Not only did they date in expensive places, but they also looked at houses and land together. It seemed they were ready for their new life after acquiring my assets. But the biggest bombshell was yet to come. Mr. Harrison's people installed a small recording device in the Mercedes I had given to my father-in-law, and what it recorded was even more terrifying than the conversation on the rooftop. I heard Michael's voice and his father's, Richard. Dad, I think it's almost time. Sarah is starting to soften. A few more days, and I'll convince her to sign. Richard's voice was deep and cunning. Good. You need to hurry. Your mother is getting impatient about the house. Wait, what about Ashley? Don't let her ruin the big plan. Don't worry, Dad. I've already promised her. After this, I'll divorce Sarah immediately. We'll live in the mansion. I even used some of Sarah's money to buy her a condo, so she won't cause any trouble. I sat listening to the recording, my hands and feet cold. It wasn't just my mother-in-law, my father-in-law. The man I had always respected for his seriousness and quiet demeanor was also an accomplice. Their entire family, from top to bottom, was a pack of wolves waiting to devour me. I turned off the recording. A cold smile appeared on my lips. My revenge plan now had a new target. I wouldn't just make Michael pay. I would destroy his entire fake family. While I quietly gathered evidence and continued to play the role of a long-suffering wife, my brothers-in-law and their families continued to live like kings and queens in my mansion. Their presence was not only annoying, but a constant insult to me. They seemed to not even see me, freely ordering the staff, using my belongings, and never forgetting to make veiled comments. Sarah, why do you seem so sad today? Perhaps you're worried about Michael's business. My sister-in-law, Lisa, said at the dinner table, her voice full of sarcasm. I just quietly bowed my head and ate. I knew that as the day they thought they would succeed approached, they would become even more arrogant, and that arrogance would be their weakness. I decided to exploit this weakness. I needed an explosion, an event big enough to expose their true nature before I officially made my move. And the opportunity came from an unexpected source. One afternoon, while I was in my office, I received a call from an unknown number. Hello, is this Mrs. Sarah? The voice on the other end was that of a young woman, a bit shy. Yes, this is she. Who is this? I'm Chloe, a former employee at the boutique you often visit. I have something I think you should know. The woman's voice seemed urgent. I was a bit surprised but listened patiently, and what Chloe said stunned me. Ma'am, I'm sorry to bother you, but my conscience wouldn't let me stay silent. Your husband, Sir Michael, is having an affair with our store manager, Miss Ashley. Ashley, that name echoed again, piercing my wound. Can you clarify? I tried to keep my voice calm. Yes. They've been having an affair for a long time. Sir Michael often comes to the store not to buy clothes for you, but to meet Miss Ashley. He even bought her many expensive items, always the latest collections. Everyone at the store knows. You're the only one who doesn't. Chloe paused for a moment, and then continued with more shocking information. And, ma'am, I think Miss Ashley is pregnant with Sir Michael's child. These past few days, she's always been nauseous, and her stomach is getting a bit bigger. We've been suspecting it, but yesterday, I accidentally overheard her talking to her friend. She was boasting that she was about to become the owner of a big mansion, and that Sir Michael promised to divorce you to marry her after everything was settled. My world crumbled. Pregnant, divorce to marry. Their plan wasn't just to steal my assets, but a complete replacement. A plan to make his mistress the legal homeowner. Pain and anger erupted in my chest. I thought I was ready for the worst, but this truth still devastated me. Not only had he betrayed me, but they were going to have a child. Meanwhile, for 10 years, he always told me there was no need to rush. That career was more important. It was all a lie. Chloe, are you sure? I asked again, my voice trembling. 100%, ma'am, Chloe said firmly. I even took some photos of them together at the mall. If you need them, I'll send them to you. Thank you, Chloe. Thank you very, very much. I hung up the phone, my hands and feet trembling. I sank into my chair, unable to stop the tears from flowing. But I didn't let myself cry for long. I wiped away my tears. The pain quickly turned into a cold determination. This was it. This was the weapon I needed. A weapon strong enough to completely destroy the fake morality of their entire family. I immediately called Mr. Harrison to relay the shocking news. Mr. Harrison couldn't hide his anger either. Shameless. I'll verify that immediately. Less than a day passed. Mr. Harrison had the results. Chloe was right. Ashley was 4 months pregnant. And according to the information he gathered, Michael had taken her to a high-end private clinic for checkups. All the evidence was clear. I knew it was time to act. I wouldn't face them alone. I would let his entire family, the people who covered up his sins, witness it. For this spectacle, I chose dinner time on a weekend, when everyone was present. I intentionally cooked many delicious dishes and set the table beautifully. The family seemed happy and peaceful. They didn't know this was their last peaceful dinner. In the middle of the meal, as everyone was laughing, I suddenly stood up, holding a glass of red wine. "I have something I'd like to announce to everyone," I said, my clear voice capturing everyone's attention. They all looked at me, a bit surprised. Eleanor smiled, perhaps thinking I was about to announce the transfer of the house title. "What is it, dear? Good news?" "Yes, very good news." I smiled and looked at Michael, a smile full of meaning. "Our family will soon be bigger." Everyone became excited. Eleanor was overjoyed. "Really, dear? You're pregnant? That's wonderful news." Michael was also stunned, and then his face brightened. Perhaps he thought this was a lucky opportunity, that this child would be the tie that would bind me even tighter to him. But I poured cold water on his hopes. I shook my head. Not me, but Miss Ashley, Michael's girlfriend. The entire dining room fell into a deadly silence. The smile on Eleanor's lips froze. My brothers-in-law and sisters-in-law gaped, looking at each other. Michael's face turned ashen. He suddenly stood up. "Sarah, what are you saying?" "What am I saying?" "It's funny," I said, and took the photos Chloe had sent me from my bag and threw them on the table. "What are these?" "You and Ashley together at the mall. You took her for checkups. Explain yourself." I continued, taking out another paper. "This is the ultrasound result. The baby is 16 weeks old, healthy as can be. You're about to be a father, my dear husband. Congratulations to you. Congratulations to our entire family." Everyone burst into chaos. Eleanor, trembling, pointed at Michael. "You! Is this true? Are you going to destroy this family?" Michael stammered, unable to speak. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry," Eleanor screamed. "Sorry." Then she turned to me, her eyes no longer angry but full of worry. "Sarah, dear, listen to Mom." Michael just lost his way. That woman seduced him. Don't believe her. In this family, you are our only daughter-in-law. I smiled bitterly. My mother-in-law, a cunning and calculating woman, she wasn't worried about my pain. She was worried that her plan to seize my assets would be ruined. She was afraid that I would get angry and immediately demand a divorce, and if that happened, everything would vanish like smoke. I could clearly see the calculation in her eyes. I decided to continue this play, but with a completely different script. A script that I wrote myself. I sank into my chair, covering my face with both hands, and began to cry, a wail full of pain and sorrow. "Why did you do this to me, Michael? For 10 years, what did I do wrong? I did everything for you, for this family. But this is how you repay me." My acting was immediately effective. My husband's entire family, who had been worried, suddenly became confused. Perhaps they were ready for a big fight, an outburst, but they didn't expect my reaction to be like this. Exactly according to the script of a betrayed wife, weak, hurt, and needing comfort. Michael seemed to see a glimmer of hope. He quickly rushed over, knelt beside me, and tried to remove my hands from my face. "Sarah, forgive me. I know I made a mistake. I have no excuse. I'm an animal. I neglected you. Hurt me, yell at me. Whatever you want, just don't leave me. I can't live without you," he cried, tears of a talented actor. He talked about his loneliness, the pressure, blaming the situation, the temptation, everything but his own philandering and treachery. Eleanor quickly followed suit. She sat beside me, hugging me and stroking my hair. "Dear, calm down. I know it hurts. Michael made a mistake. I'll take care of teaching him a lesson. Please. For us, for your father, for this family. Forgive him just this once. He made a mistake, but he's repentant." His entire family, his siblings and sisters-in-law, also approached. Someone offered water, Someone fanned me. Someone spoke empty words of comfort. They formed a circle, a sweet trap, trying to impress upon me that I needed to forgive. I continued to cry, but between my fingers, I observed each face, each expression. I clearly saw the pretense in Michael's tears, the calculation in Eleanor's words, and the relief on the faces of the others when they saw me giving in. They thought they had succeeded, that with a few sweet words and crocodile tears, they could calm me down, make me forget everything, and the drama of stealing my assets would continue. After crying enough, I slowly lifted my face. My eyes were red and swollen. I looked at Michael, my voice trembling and faltering. "Is what you're saying true? Will you really break up with her?" "I promise." Michael raised his right hand. "Tomorrow morning, I'll talk to her and make everything clear. I will never speak to her again. From now on, only you are in my heart." I turned to Eleanor. "Mom, won't you hate me? My foolish child." Eleanor hugged me tighter. "I love you very much. How could I hate you?" "Don't worry, I'll always be on your side." The play of forgiveness was perfectly executed. I pretended to be a forgiving wife who, out of love, was willing to forget her husband's mistake. His entire family breathed a sigh of relief. The tension disappeared, replaced by a fake cheerfulness. The dinner ended in a strange scene. They laughed again, drank again, as if nothing had happened. Only I knew that behind those smiles, the plans were still ongoing. That night, Michael was incredibly attentive. He prepared warm water for me to wash my face, massaged my feet. He lay beside me, hugged me, and whispered words of love, promises of a future meant only for the two of us. I closed my eyes and pretended to believe, to be asleep. But in the dark, my eyes were open. I felt the contempt enveloping my heart. This act was incredibly heavy, but I knew I had to continue, because I had a new plan, a bolder plan. I didn't just want them to lose money. I wanted to destroy their reputation, and to do that, I needed one thing: a signed divorce paper from Michael. I would get it not through confrontation, but through the fake trust he was trying so hard to build. He thought he was deceiving me. But he didn't know that the sheep he underestimated was about to become a wolf, ready to devour him. After that night of dramatic acting, I began a new role: the wife struggling to heal her broken heart. I was no longer cold and distant. I started talking to Michael again, even if it was just small talk. I still prepared meals, took care of the house. But in every action, there was a distance, a deep sadness that anyone could perceive. My husband's family was also good at acting. Eleanor called daily to check on me, sometimes sending expensive food, sometimes telling Michael to take good care of me. My sisters-in-law also became more friendly. Sometimes they even invited me shopping or to get beauty treatments. They were trying to make amends, or more accurately, they were trying to lull me into a false sense of security with fake concern. I knew their objective. They wanted me to quickly forget about the infidelity so they could continue their plan to transfer the mansion's deed. I decided to give them an opportunity for them to fall into their own trap. A week later, I was the first to speak to Michael. "Honey," I said, a little hesitant, "I've been doing a lot of thinking. I don't want to dwell on what happened, but there's still something bothering me, a fear that won't go away." Michael quickly took my hand. "Tell me, whatever it is, I'll do it to put your mind at ease." "I'm afraid." I looked at him directly in the eyes, my eyes tearing up. "I'm afraid that one day, you'll change again. I'm afraid that she and the child will come back to ruin our family. I can't live with this fear." "That won't happen, my love," Michael said firmly. I promised. "What's a promise worth?" I shook my head. "I need assurance. An assurance in writing. I want us to get a divorce." Michael was stunned, fear etched on his face. "Divorce? Sarah, why are you saying that? Didn't you agree to forgive me?" "Yes, I forgave you," I said in a calm and clear voice, "but I can't forgive the lack of security in my heart. Let's get a divorce on paper. Legally, we'll no longer be married. You'll be free. But we won't make it public. We'll still live together. Still a family in everyone's eyes. You'll still be my husband and the father of our future children. We'll make an agreement." I'll give you a fair share of our assets so you can start your own business, so you won't be accused of depending on your wife. In return, you must promise never to speak to her again. If one day I find out you're still secretly meeting, then that's truly the end, and you'll get nothing." My suggestion was brilliant. It hit all the notes Michael and his family wanted. First, the quiet divorce would give him legal freedom from me, paving the way for his future plans. Second, receiving a large share of the assets effortlessly would make him feel like he had won. Third, continuing to live together and pretend to be married would keep him hidden from public scrutiny, maintaining his image as a successful man with a happy family. And most importantly, he would think I still loved him, that I was so innocent that I believed a piece of paper could bind a man. Michael was stunned by my suggestion. He couldn't believe I could come up with such a perfect solution. He looked at me, scrutinizing, trying to find a flaw in the plan. "Sarah, are you serious? Is that really what you think?" "I have no other way," I replied, my voice full of weariness and resignation. "I just want assurance, however fragile it may be. If you don't agree, I won't force you. We'll continue like this, but I will never trust you again, and I will never again consider transferring any assets to your name." My last sentence sealed the deal. It directly hit his primary goal. He knew that if he didn't agree to this plan, his plan to acquire the mansion would completely fail. After a few moments of thought, Michael nodded. "Okay, Sarah, if that's what will put your mind at ease, I'll follow your wishes." The subsequent events unfolded very quickly. We went to Mr. Harrison's law office. Of course, I had secretly discussed the terms with Mr. Harrison beforehand. In front of Michael, Mr. Intames, Harrison played the role of a fair lawyer, advising based on our agreed-upon terms. The divorce settlement was prepared. According to it, I would give Michael a high-end condominium valued at $1.5 million and $2 million in cash. In return, Michael would surrender all rights to this mansion and other assets registered in my name. He also signed an agreement not to contact Ashley again. The divorce and the agreement were quickly signed. On the day of the court hearing, only Michael and I and our 2 lawyers were present. The entire process was quiet. When the judge declared us no longer married, I saw a triumphant smile on Michael's lips. He thought he had won. He had easily obtained $3, $5 million and legal freedom, while still living in my mansion. He didn't know that the divorce papers he had just signed were not a ticket to freedom, but a judgment on his entire plan. Legally, I was completely free. The mansion and all my assets were fully protected. I continued my acting perfectly. I pretended to be sad after the divorce, but gradually brightened, believing in Michael's repentance. His family was overjoyed. They thought the victim was in their trap, just waiting to be harvested. Eleanor started dropping hints again about transferring the deed. Michael also told me that now that we had a clear agreement, I should show my sincerity. Transferring the mansion's deed to him would be a symbol of our new beginning. I just smiled and nodded. "I'll think about it." I knew it was time to play my last card, a card that would bring them all down. After the secret processing of our divorce, I held the strongest legal shield. Now, every move I made was carefully calculated. Every step was a strategic move in the game I had prepared. My former husband's family was immersed in their own joy, completely unaware that they were dancing on the brink of a precipice. They continued to pressure me, urging me to fulfill my promise to transfer the mansion's deed. They didn't know that their greed and eagerness were pushing them closer to the final trap. I knew I couldn't prolong this charade. I needed a reason, an event significant and justifiable enough to execute my grand reversal. And the idea came to me one morning while reading the newspaper. A small article in the business section about the Children's Hope Foundation, a reputable non-government organization that built orphanages and schools for orphaned children, caught my attention. The pictures of children with clear, innocent eyes, yet lacking love, touched my heart. I suddenly realized that my vast mansion, a home to people full of calculation and greed, would have greater meaning if it became a true home for those young souls. A bold and somewhat crazy plan formed in my mind. I wouldn't sell the house, and I wouldn't keep it for myself. I would give it away. I would turn the very thing they coveted most into a torch, to burn down their entire plan and their fake morality. I immediately contacted Mr. Harrison and explained my intentions. At first, Mr. Harrison was a bit surprised by my decision, but after I explained, he fully supported me. Sarah, this is a brilliant move. It will not only protect your assets, but also elevate you to a completely different level. I'll help you finalize all the paperwork in the fastest and most discreet way. I began coordinating with the Children's Hope Foundation. I met with the foundation's director, an elderly woman with a kind heart and a broad vision. When she heard my intentions, she was deeply moved. Sarah, what you're doing is so noble. Your mansion, with its beautiful location and space, will become a model orphanage, a place that will nurture and raise hundreds of underprivileged children. On behalf of the children, I sincerely thank you. All legal processes were carefully carried out. The deed of donation was prepared with strict terms, ensuring that the mansion would be used for its intended purpose and could not be transferred or used for commercial purposes. I requested that everything remain confidential until the day of the official announcement. Meanwhile, at home, I began spreading misinformation. I showed signs of softening in the face of Michael's and his mother's insistence. I told them I had thought it over carefully and was now willing to transfer the mansion's deed. But I wanted to do it in a special way. I want to host a big party here at home, I told Michael, my face full of dreams. I want to invite all our relatives, close friends of our families, to witness this. I want to use this opportunity to officially announce my decision, to show everyone that we've overcome our challenges and our family is happy again. I also want it to be a way of apologizing to Mom for the worries I caused her. Michael was overjoyed, without a hint of doubt. He completely believed it was a great idea. You're truly amazing, my love. What a wonderful idea. It'll be classy, and will prove our family's standing. Everyone will be impressed. My former husband's family was ecstatic. They immediately made a long guest list full of people they wanted to boast to, people they wanted to impress. Eleanor even specifically instructed me to invite some prominent journalists for coverage. I smiled and agreed to everything. Yes, Mom, don't worry, I'll take care of it. They didn't know that the journalists I would invite were far more numerous and prestigious than they imagined. I secretly contacted the biggest newspapers, the most prominent TV stations, not through ordinary connections but through the Children's Hope Foundation. I gave them an exclusive tip. A successful businesswoman would perform a historic act of charity, donating a mansion valued at $25 million to build an orphanage for orphans. The details would be announced at a private party. I cast the bait, and the media bit. Everything was set. The game was laid out. The pieces were in their places. The final party, which would be the end of my former husband's family's fake drama, was about to begin. They eagerly awaited a night of glory, a coronation ceremony for their greed. They didn't know it was a party of judgment, a public trial that I myself would preside over. And the verdict for them would be the downfall of their dignity and all that they had painstakingly built through lies. A bold decision, a move no one expected. Would Sarah's plan succeed? How dramatic would the ending be? If you're eagerly awaiting the fate of the greedy and hypocritical, click the like button and subscribe now. Your support is the strongest validation for justice and righteousness. Don't hesitate. Join us until the very last moment. On the day of the party, my mansion was decorated more lavishly than ever. Thousands of tiny lights were scattered throughout the garden, turning it into a place from a fairy tale. A large stage was set up in the center, with a giant LED screen behind it, ready for the important moment. My former husband's family had been busy since morning. They wore their most expensive clothes, each with a triumphant smile on their lips, unable to hide their joy and sense of victory. Eleanor walked around, ordering the staff about every small detail, always smiling, as if she were the true host of the celebration. That flower arrangement should be in the center of the table to look elegant. Those glasses should be wiped again to sparkle. My guests are important people. They shouldn't have anything negative to say. Michael, meanwhile, was incessantly making calls, confirming guests, his voice full of confidence and power. Hello, Uncle. Tonight, be early, okay? There's a big surprise. Yes, that thing I told you about before. Tonight, it's all settled. He spoke openly, no longer with his former secretive demeanor. He believed he had victory in his grasp. My brothers-in-law huddled in a corner, discussing how they would ask Michael for a large sum for investments or to buy new cars once the title was transferred. They had already begun planning a grand future built on my assets. I watched it all, with a strange peace in my heart. I wore a simple white dress, with light makeup. I didn't want to be the center of attention. Tonight, the stage wasn't for me, but for them. The main characters in the tragedy of their own lives. As the guests began to arrive, the atmosphere became even more lively. As I expected, my former husband's family invited many prominent figures in the business world and even distant relatives I had never met. They wanted more people to witness their triumph. Eleanor and Richard stood at the door, shaking hands and chatting, proudly introducing Michael to everyone. "This is Michael, our eldest son. He will soon be taking on greater responsibilities in the family." Michael, head held high, smiled and accepted the congratulations. Occasionally, he would glance at me, a look mixed with command and indulgence. I just stood quietly in a corner, smiling and greeting the familiar guests, playing the role of a supportive, kind wife perfectly. No one noticed the approaching storm beneath the calm surface. Amidst the elegant guests, a group of simply dressed people quietly entered and sat in a corner. They were the journalists I had invited. They didn't carry large cameras, only small ones and cell phones. They arrived as friends of the owner, blending into the crowd, quietly observing and waiting. My former husband's family was busy with their show, completely oblivious to their presence. And then, a special guest arrived, who stopped everyone at the door. It was Mrs. Reynolds, the director of the Children's Hope Foundation. She was accompanied by several colleagues, also simply dressed. Eleanor frowned slightly. Perhaps she couldn't recall inviting them. I quickly approached and smiled. "Welcome, Aunt Reynolds. Thank you for coming." "Hello, dear." Mrs. Reynolds held my hand and gently squeezed it, a meaningful gesture. For such a significant occasion, how could we not be here? I introduced Mrs. Reynolds to my mother-in-law. "Mom, this is Aunt Reynolds, a very special friend of mine." Eleanor merely nodded and quickly returned to attending to her important guests. She didn't know that the simple woman she had disregarded was about to deliver the final blow to her arrogance. The party officially began. After a few performances and empty greetings, Michael went up to the stage. He held the microphone, the stage lights highlighting his features. He cleared his throat and smiled at the crowd. "Good evening, everyone, to our relatives and friends. First and foremost, on behalf of my family, I want to thank all of you for attending tonight." He spoke eloquently, a carefully prepared speech about family love, respect for parents, and the importance of the man as the pillar of the household. "And tonight," he emphasized, his voice solemn, "at this warm gathering, we have a very important decision that we wish to announce. A decision that will mark a new chapter, a new future for our entire family. And the one who will announce this decision is none other than my beloved wife, Sarah." All eyes turned to me. People began to applaud. My former husband's family looked at me, urging me to go up. They were waiting for me to say the words they had long yearned for. I took a deep breath, smiled, and stood up. Slowly, I walked onto the stage. The lights hit my face, but I wasn't blinded. I felt an extraordinary peace. This was it. The time for the ending had come. I looked at Michael, his entire family. Their faces glowed with triumph. They didn't know that in just a few minutes, all those smiles would turn into terror. I stood on the stage under the bright lights, and hundreds of eyes focused on me. I didn't have a script. I just smiled, a very sweet smile, and took the microphone. "Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Dad, Mom, my siblings, and you, Michael." My voice was clear and echoed throughout the venue. Tonight, I am truly happy. I am happy to stand here in the very home where I poured all my efforts to build and to share one of the most important decisions of my life. I saw Michael and his mother nodding below. They thought I was following their script. "Friends," I continued, my voice slightly trembling. "A perfect act. For 10 years, I have always believed that a person's most important wealth is not money or a house, but a happy family, a heart that knows how to love and share. I have always strived to live by that principle. I looked at my former husband's family, my eyes full of what they perceived as love. I am so fortunate to have a husband who always loves me, a family that always cares for and protects me. They have taught me many things, especially the value of giving. At this point, I saw Eleanor begin to wipe her eyes. Perhaps she was acting as a touched mother-in-law, and tonight, I want to make the greatest gift of my life. I want to spread my love further, to people who truly need it. I paused for a moment to let everyone's curiosity grow. Then I turned to the large LED screen behind me. May everyone please look at the screen? The screen suddenly lit up, but what appeared was not a document for transferring the title. It was a professionally produced short video. It began with images of orphan children with innocent eyes in dilapidated orphanages. Sad music played. The entire place fell silent. My former husband's family began to get confused. They didn't understand what was happening. These children, my voice echoed through the microphone, accompanied by the music. They have no father, no mother, no real home. Their dream is sometimes just a hearty meal, a peaceful sleep. The video continued, showing the work of the Children's Hope Foundation. Free classes, feeding programs, nurturing hands. But outside, there are still many golden hearts. People who quietly dedicate themselves to giving hope to the underprivileged. And I am so fortunate to have met them. I turned back to the audience. Friends, the important decision I wish to announce tonight is... I paused again, staring directly at Michael, Eleanor. Their faces had shifted from confusion to complete apprehension. I, Sarah, have decided to donate this entire mansion, valued at $25 million, to the Children's Hope Foundation to build an orphanage, a school that will be called Hope Haven for orphaned children. My words were like a bomb exploding in the middle of the gathering. The entire place fell silent for a few seconds. Then it filled with whispers of shock. What? $25 million? Is she crazy? My God, what's happening? I didn't let the commotion last. I signaled, and from below, Mrs. Reynolds, the director of the foundation, accompanied by her colleagues, slowly walked onto the stage. And to prove this decision, I introduce to you Mrs. Reynolds, the director of the Children's Hope Foundation. Tonight, in front of all of you, we will conduct the signing ceremony. Mrs. Reynolds took the microphone from me, her voice warm and solemn. On behalf of the hundreds of children in our foundation, I can only express my heartfelt gratitude to Sarah's golden heart. This is an invaluable gift, an act that will change the lives of so many children. A large contract was brought out. Mrs. Reynolds and I signed it simultaneously. The camera flashes from the journalists were incessant, recording this historic moment. People began to applaud, weakly at first, but then louder and louder. They applauded my noble deed. But I knew there was one group that wasn't applauding. My former husband's family. They stood like statues. Eleanor's mouth hung open, her eyes wide in disbelief. Richard's face was ashen, gripping his chair tightly to keep from falling. My brothers-in-law looked at each other, their faces turning from shock to anger. And Michael, my former husband, he stood on the stage, just a few steps away from me. His face was white as paper. The triumphant smile had vanished, replaced by undisguised worry and disappointment. He looked at me, his mouth opening as if wanting to say something, but no words came out. The play's ending was perfectly executed. I turned what should have been a celebration of their greed into a widely admired act of charity. I took the very thing they coveted most, not for myself, but to give to those more deserving. This blow not only left them with a material loss, but also completely shattered the fake dignity they had always strived to build. The signing ceremony concluded with loud applause and incessant camera flashes. The journalists swarmed Mrs. Reynolds and me like bees, asking questions non-stop, not just about the mansion's value and the orphanage plan, but also about the deeper reasons behind my sudden decision. I answered calmly, every word carefully considered. I spoke about my father, who always taught me social responsibility. I spoke about the dream of seeing children's smiles instead of the silence of a vast, empty space. I expertly turned my personal story into a humane message. An inspiring story without a single word directly referencing the betrayal of my former husband's family. I knew that my silence regarding their sins at that moment was the harshest punishment. I wanted to let public opinion, the very guests they invited, judge their true character. The guests gradually left, each stopping to shake my hand. Their eyes no longer just admired a great deed, but also held sympathy and respect. Sarah, we truly admire your strength. What a wonderful decision. You've taught many a lesson here. Those whispers, I knew, were heard by my former husband's family in the corner. They, who had hoped for a night of glory, now stood bewildered and pathetic, relegated to being extras in their own drama. The fame they craved now shone on the person they wanted to bring down. When the last guest and the journalists had left, the luxurious mansion suddenly fell into an eerie silence. Only I, my mother, Mr. Harrison, and Michael's entire family, comprising 12 people, remained. They stood in a corner like a pack of cornered wild animals, their eyes filled with anger and fear. The terrifying silence was broken by a deafening scream. "Sarah, are you insane?" It was Eleanor. After a few moments of stupor, she could no longer control her true nature. She rushed at me like a moth to a flame. Her beautiful, carefully made-up face contorted with rage. "What are you doing? Who gave you permission? Who gave you the right to give away this house? This is my son's house, the future of my entire family." She raised her hand, laden with diamond rings, to slap me. But my mother, who had been quietly standing beside me, was faster. She grabbed Eleanor's wrist. My mother's grip wasn't strong, but it was full of authority, stopping Eleanor from acting. "Eleanor," my mother's voice was as cold as ice. "Calm down. Have you forgotten? This house, from the first stone to the last blade of grass, is registered in my daughter Sarah's name. She has every right to her property." "Her property?" Eleanor screamed, struggling to break free. "She's my daughter-in-law. My son's wife. According to tradition, what belongs to the husband also belongs to the wife. You're behind this, aren't you? You encouraged her." She turned and glared at my mother. No one needed to encourage me. I stepped out from behind my mother and faced Eleanor. There was no longer any fear in my eyes, only a cold peace. This was my own decision. And I don't think I need to ask anyone's permission, especially from people who see me only as a tool. You. Eleanor was speechless with rage. She trembled, pointing at me. "You gave away this house. What about my family? My 2 brothers-in-law's families? Your in-laws? We all live here. Do you want to throw us out onto the streets to be ridiculed?" This was the word I had been waiting for. The word that exposed all their greed, selfishness, and shamelessness. Until the very last moment, she saw no fault in herself. She still considered it her right to live off my assets. I looked at her, a slight smile appearing on my lips. Slowly, I took a folded document from my purse. Slowly, I opened it. "Madam, perhaps you were too busy planning your family's future that you forgot a small detail." I held up a paper in front of her. My voice was clear and firm. "This is Michael's and my marriage certificate," but across it, stamped in a large clear red, were the unmistakable words, "Annulled." Eleanor froze. She snatched the paper from my hand, her eyes wide, reading it over and over as if unable to believe it. "Annulled? When did you get an annulment? Why? Why didn't I know?" "3 weeks ago," I said calmly. "Legally, your dear son and I are no longer married. I am no longer your daughter-in-law. I am just an outsider. An outsider you accidentally invited to a party at her former home." I turned to Michael, who still stood like a statue, his face white as paper. "Isn't that right, my former husband?" The bombshells kept dropping. A deadly silence enveloped the room. Their entire family completely collapsed. They couldn't believe that while they were busy, acting and celebrating, I had quietly ended the game with a move they hadn't anticipated. "What now?" Richard said. After a few moments of stupor, he spoke. "Even if you're annulled, this house was bought when you were married. It's still marital property. You have no right to decide alone." "You are right, Mr. Harrison," who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "According to the law, this was marital property. However, Prior to the annulment, they signed a property division agreement that was legally notarized at a law office. Mr. Harrison took out another document. According to this agreement, Mr. Michael voluntarily accepted a condominium valued at $1.5 million and $2 million in cash. In exchange, he surrendered all rights to this mansion and other assets registered to Sarah. He signed this with clear understanding and without coercion. What? $3.5 million? Eleanor screamed. She turned to Michael, her eyes seemingly wanting to kill him. You took money and kept it a secret from us. Michael just hung his head, trembling. I was going to tell you. You were going to use the money to start a new life with Ashley, weren't you? I finished his sentence. My voice was cold. I didn't need to bring out the recordings. The look on his father's face was enough evidence. The entire plan, the entire deception, was exposed. They had nothing more to say. The truth was like a powerful slap to their greed and arrogance. I looked at Eleanor, the woman who was once powerful. Now she was sitting on the floor, her eyes blank. I approached her, bent down, and whispered, Madam, where your family will live is now your son's problem, the man you raised. That is not the responsibility of an outsider like me. From now on, this house, which you thought was yours, will go to the children who need it most. And that is my answer. Eleanor looked up at me. No longer any anger in her eyes, only complete defeat and loss. The play had truly ended. That night, after we left, the grand mansion was engulfed in a deadly silence. A silence that signaled a complete collapse. His family, from the pinnacle of arrogance, fell into the abyss of shame and failure. The news about the $25 million charity party, along with the scandals behind it, such as the secret annulment and the plan to steal assets, became an unstoppable media storm. It was discussed not only in tabloids, but also in major news as an example of moral decay in some wealthy families. My story took a 180-degree turn. From a woman being slandered, I became a symbol of a modern woman, intelligent, brave, and with a golden heart. My image on stage, calmly exposing the lies and then declaring the donation, inspired millions. In contrast, my former husband's family became the laughingstock of the entire country, a living example of greed and betrayal. Their businesses collapsed, friends and partners abandoned them. Eleanor was hospitalized due to high blood pressure. Michael's two brothers immediately left and cut off all communication, afraid of being implicated. His youngest sister's wedding was canceled. Richard's small company went bankrupt, and their house was repossessed by the bank. They became destitute. But the most pathetic was Michael. He lost everything. He was hated by society, a deceiver and a traitor. He was fired from his job. The $3.5 million he received only caused more trouble. Ashley, upon learning that Michael was bankrupt, vanished into thin air, taking a significant portion of the money with her. Michael became an alcoholic, constantly complaining about his fate and blaming me for everything. He never admitted that his own greed had destroyed his future. A week later, while I was finalizing the last papers for the donation, Michael suddenly arrived. He looked disheveled and smelled of alcohol. He knelt before me, crying and begging. Sarah, I made a mistake. Forgive me. Let's start over. Take back the donation. We're still family. I looked at him. I felt nothing but disgust. Michael, I said, we ended the night you and your mother planned to throw me out. You didn't just betray love. You also sold your dignity. You don't deserve forgiveness. I called security. Please escort him out. From now on, this place and my life are closed to him. Michael was dragged out, continuously screaming, begging for forgiveness, and cursing, but it was too late. The large gate of the mansion slowly closed, like the ending of a play, closing off 10 years of my life, filled with pain and lies. I stood alone in the garden. I took a deep breath. I felt a true freedom. I hadn't lost. Instead, I had found myself again. Their downfall didn't bring me joy, but it brought me justice. I was free from a golden cage. A new life awaited me. A life I would decide for myself. A life full of peace and meaning. Months passed. When the noise of the scandal finally subsided, my life began a new chapter. A chapter peaceful, clear, and full of light. The mansion by the river officially had a new name, Hope Haven. A bronze plaque hung elegantly on the gate. Under the foundation's management, it became a true home for over 100 orphaned children. The luxurious bedrooms were converted into clean and airy dormitories. The spacious living room became a library and common room. The garden was turned into a playground. The laughter and shouts of children filled every corner, chasing away the cold and fake past. Occasionally, on weekends, I visit the orphanage, not as a donor, but as a big sister, a friend. I bring books, candy, and play with them. Looking at their innocent smiles, I feel a pure joy I had never felt before. I discovered that the true value of wealth is not in the numbers in a bank account, but in how much joy and hope it can bring to others. I no longer live there. I bought myself a small and beautiful penthouse in downtown Manhattan. It has a spacious balcony where I grow roses and orchids and overlook the shimmering city lights at night. I live alone, but I'm not lonely. I found joy again in simple things. I relearned to paint, played the piano, and traveled alone. I all returned to business, but with a different perspective. I started a small consulting firm to help women entrepreneurs get started. I want to use my experience to help them become strong and independent. Regarding my former husband's family, I heard that after selling everything to pay off their debts, they moved to a distant, rural town. Michael now works an entry-level job in a warehouse. Their luxurious life and malicious plans crumbled. I believe the law of karma never fails. One afternoon, as I was having coffee on my balcony, my mother visited. She sat beside me, quietly watching the sunset. "You've found true peace, haven't you, dear?" she asked. I nodded and smiled. "Yes, Mom. A peace that doesn't depend on anyone. A peace that comes from within." "I'm proud of you." She held my hand. "You didn't just rise again. You turned your pain into strength. Your life has become more meaningful than I ever expected." I leaned my head on her shoulder, feeling complete peace. 10 years of marriage took many things from me, but it also gave me an invaluable lesson. My life was battered by a violent storm, but after it, a beautiful rainbow appeared. I lost a fake family but found myself and a higher purpose in life. The laughter of the children from Hope Haven reached me. I knew my decision was right. Giving is not losing, but receiving more fully. I am no longer Sarah, the businesswoman with $25 million in wealth. I am just Sarah, a woman who found happiness in giving, joy in simple things, and freedom in her own soul. And that is the most precious wealth. A wealth no one can take away.